He had thought of that possibility more than once over the years, ever since learning of the complexity of his family's history, of Lee's linked to Olmsford's, but there had never been even a hint of such magic in his blood, not even the smallest suggestion that it might be present. "I don't think I have any use of magic," he said. "I don't think anyone in the family has since the Olmsford twins. But you have something else of value, don't you?" She gestured to his sword. "You have the blade that is your family's legacy from centuries ago. The blade Alanon dipped into the black waters of the Hades horn and infused with his own magic. The blade he then returned to Ronley, naming him protector of Bryn Olmsford when she went in search of the Eldach in order to destroy it." "So she knew about his sword." Paxson nodded, but did not reply. He feared the sword now, could almost feel it happening. He feared the worst now, could almost feel it happening. She had brought him here to claim the sword for the Druid Order, and she would take it away in spite of his protests. He would want to do something to prevent her, but in the end, common sense would prevail. Her magic was too powerful for him to resist, and he would never even think to try to use the sword against her. It would be pointless. "Do you have to take it from me?" he asked finally. "I don't have to," she answered, "but I should. Magic is not allowed in the hands of those who are not trained to use it, even if they have come to it in a legitimate way. It is a matter of public safety that such magic should be collected and held by the Druids." "The Druid edict," he said. "I know. Still, that is not why I brought you to Paranor." She looked off into the gardens, as if measuring something with her gaze. "You discovered the magic quite by accident, but you used it to good purpose, to save your sister, and you exercised to reasonable judgment in doing so. What do you intend to do with it, if you keep it?" He thought a moment, and then shook his head helplessly. "I don't really know. Who else knows of the sword's power besides you? Your sister? Does your mother know?" He shook his head no. "Just our canon, as you might have already guessed, if you know how I rescued my sister." "Tell me what happened, Paxson. Don't leave anything out. I may be able to tell you more than you know about this business by the time you've finished." So, Paxson, curious now as to what she meant, told her everything, from when Jayet came running up to get him at the cottage, to when he returned home safely from Wayford with Chris in tow. Aifenglow listened without interrupting, attentively to his every word. When he finished, she gave a deep sigh. "The Druid Order knows of our canon. This is not the first time he has been involved in something that works counter to our purposes. He will have to be dealt with eventually. He is a skilled sorcerer, but he is also venal and treacherous. You are right to be worried about him. He will come after you sooner or later. He will still want your sword, and he will not give up on trying to get it until he has it. I thought as much. You don't know the half of it yet. Let me tell you what I suspect is the rest. Ostensibly, your sister got involved with throwing dice at a tavern with a stranger who later turned out to be Arcanon. She bet more than she had, lost and couldn't pay, so he took her out of the tavern and back to Wayford, where she could work off her debt at his pleasure house. You tried to stop it from happening, failed at the airfield, but picked yourself up and went after them. While you were attempting a rescue at Dark House, you drew out your sword and discovered it contained magic that responded to you. The magic saved your life. You fought your way free and rescued your sister. All well and good. She paused. But ask yourself this. Isn't it odd that he made a point of goading you into coming after him to save your sister, and while doing so, pointedly suggested you bring a weapon? So you did. You brought the Sword of Lee. But what if that was what he wanted you to do? What he expected of you all along? You've said you believe he recognized the power of the sword when he saw it, that you could tell as much when he tried to prevent you from drawing it out of its sheath. What if I told you he knew about the power of the sword all along? That he lured you to Dark House by kidnapping your sister so you would bring him the sword? Paxson frowned, considering. Arcanon had seemed suspiciously interested in the sword. But if he wanted it so badly, why wouldn't he just steal it from the cottage in the first place? It was hanging in plain sight over the fireplace. If he knew of it beforehand, wouldn't it have been easier to get possession of it that way? What if he wasn't interested only in the Sword of Lee, Paxson, but in you as well? What if the sword was of no use to him without someone who could wield it? Someone who was a member of the Lee family, a descendant of all those Lees who actually used the sword in times now past. How would he know that? Let's assume for the moment that he did. Alright, then how could he make me use it the way he wanted? Perhaps in the same way he used his own magic to make your sister play a game of dice she could not possibly win. So, Chris hadn't really been careless. She had been tricked. Paxson thought back on what had happened at the airfield when he had faced Arcanon, and again, when the sorcerer had been waiting for him at Dark House. What the Ardreese was telling him seemed to fit. So he knew of the sword and wanted it, but needed me to release its power. And that is why he kidnapped Chrysalin? Except his plan fell apart when you drew out the sword and decided to stand up to him. The magic responds to attacks faster than you can think to ask it to. That has always been the hallmark of fairy magic. What Alanon did to the Sword of Lee all those years ago at the Hades Horn was to infuse your blade with that same kind of magic. So it acted to protect you. and defeat our cannon, but that's not going to be the end of this, is it? No, it doesn't seem likely, he agreed. He felt a sinking in his stomach. He was in a lot more danger than he had imagined. If he went to all that trouble, he won't give up until he has the sword in hand. He'll keep coming after me until he gets what he wants. What should I do? Her smile returned. This is what I brought you here to talk about. I want to make you an offer. Come to Paranor and live with us. Learn to use the magic of the sword fully and responsibly. We can help you do that. When your training is complete, remain here with us for 3 years as our paladin. It would constitute repayment in full for our services and provide you with practical experience using your sword. You would be given tasks to complete, helping us to secure various items of magic and to deal with those who refuse to cooperate in our efforts to protect against misuse of that magic. At the end of 3 years, if you so choose, you would be free to go. She paused, and you would be allowed to take your sword with you when you leave. Paxson stared at her in disbelief. Are you asking me to join the Druid Order? To become a Druid? She shook her head. I am asking you to serve with the Order, not to join it. But there is work and responsibility enough just in that, Paxson. I wish you to be what was once called a knight-errant. Our order comprises students and teachers, but few are trained as warrior druids, as some once were. Few have fighting skills and weapons knowledge, and no one has a weapon like you do. You could accompany our druids while they do their work, searching out and recovering lost magic and confronting the threats such magic poses. You could help keep them safe. You could act as their protector. Will you consider doing so? He knew right away it was what he wanted, what he had been searching for, a chance to do something besides haul freight and pass the time between runs. He also understood the importance of what it would mean to be associated with the Druids. He was not afraid of what that might involve, or of the Druids themselves. He was confident in his ability to make good choices when the need arose. Still, an acceptance of the offer could not be given lightly, and the offer itself should not be accepted out of hand. There were still uncertainties to be resolved. By doing this, you would remove me from Lee, and from any danger of our cannon catching me unawares, or coming after my sister again. That is my thinking. She arched one eyebrow, though we might need to do a little more early on. But my mother and sister depend on me to work the air freight business, he said. There is no money for them if I leave. We will give them money to replace what your departure will cost them, enough so that they can live comfortably. You can either sell the business or ask someone to run it for you in your absence. I will repeat what I said before. You needn't worry for your family's welfare. If I deem it necessary, I can provide them with someone to help look after things. She was promising an awful lot, and it suggested that she badly wanted him to accept her offer. which was both reassuring and a bit intimidating. What would she ask of him as an agent of the Order? How much would he be expected to do in her service? What if, after you've trained me, you ask me to do something I don't feel right about, something I can't make myself do? She regarded him steadily. I won't ask you to do anything like that. We aren't what some people say we are, Paxson. We don't act in ways that bring harm to those who don't invite it. And should you feel we are crossing a line you yourself would not cross, we will let you step aside. But I will be expected to fight. Mostly, you will need to be prepared to fight. Your presence alone should help deflect most of the violence. Paxson wasn't sure that was true, but he saw no point in arguing about it. What really mattered was whether or not this was something he wanted to do, badly enough to take whatever risks the work offered. I don't know if I'm up to this, he admitted. I don't know if I'm good enough to do what you expect. What if I'm not? The smile returned. Paxson, I've lived a long time, and I've come to be pretty good. I've come to be a pretty good judge of character. I've been wrong about people, but not very often. So when I tell you I believe you are what we need and will be able to do what's expected, you can feel confident that I am right. I think you should consider giving it a chance. If we are both wrong, you can walk away. She held up one cautionary finger. You've been looking to do something more with your life. I could see it in your eyes when I told you what I wanted you to do. You want a chance to do something important, something that matters. You want your life to have real purpose. Why not see if the opportunity I am offering you isn't what you've been looking for? Why not discover if it isn't the chance you are seeking? You make a persuasive argument, he admitted, smiling back at her. How long do I have to decide? Do you really need time to make this decision? She asked gently. Don't you already know the answer? Isn't the answer in your heart? He stared at her in surprise. He hadn't expected this. He had believed she would tell him to take the remainder of the day to think it over. Maybe more. He waited for her to say something more, but she remained silent, watching him. He looked down momentarily, considering her words, and then met her steady gaze once more. All right, he said. I'll do it. She rose and extended her hand to him. Welcome to your new home, Paxson Lee, she said, and immediately he knew he had made the right choice.